Welcome back, Reddit drama unpacked. She tricked him into signing away everything. But she forgot one thing. He was trained for war. What happened next? The most cold-blooded surgical revenge Reddit has ever seen. Stay tuned. The night was unnervingly silent, except for the steady hum of Damon Ridley's laptop fan, as the man himself leaned closer to the glow of the screen. A spreadsheet filled with numbers reflected back onto his angular, battle-hardened face. The light traced the faint silver streaks in his otherwise dark hair, lending him a sharp, almost intimidating aura. Damon had always prided himself on discipline, both as a decorated Navy Special Operations officer and now as the head of a highly successful private security firm. His life was a precise operation, orchestrated to the last detail. Everything, including his 15-year marriage to Vanessa, seemed secure and perfectly maintained, but that illusion was about to shatter. Damon glanced at his watch. 8:30 p.m. Vanessa should have been home by now, yet she had texted earlier that she would be working late again at her interior design studio, the third time this week. A part of him brushed it off. After all, business could demand odd hours. Still, a subtle but persistent itch had begun gnawing at the edge of his trained intuition. The sharp ring of the house phone broke the uneasy quiet. Damon instinctively reached for it. Few people ever called their landline anymore. The only usual suspects were telemarketers or Vanessa's aging father. "Ridley residence," he answered, voice steady. A young, bright voice responded, "Mr. Ridley, this is Amanda from Pinnacle Realty. I'm just calling to confirm your appointment tomorrow to view the property on Highland Avenue." Damon frowned. "I think you have the wrong number. We're not looking to buy property." There was an awkward pause before the woman replied, "Oh, I must have misdialed. The appointment was for Tristan Mercer and Vanessa Leland." Then, before he could ask anything, the line went dead. For a moment, Damon simply stood there, phone still in hand, his mind racing to process the name he had just heard. Vanessa Leland, his wife's maiden name. And who the hell was Tristan Mercer? The initial flush of confusion was quickly replaced by something far colder, a shift into the mental gear that had kept him alive during dangerous missions. Assess the situation, gather intelligence, formulate a plan, execute. The spreadsheet forgotten, Damon closed his laptop and reopened it moments later, his fingers dancing swiftly across the keys. He launched a search for Tristan Mercer. The results were immediate. Mercer was a 38-year-old real estate developer whose image plastered promotional websites, slick, polished, the type of man who wore designer suits to Starbucks. His smile was practiced, his charm mechanical. A man who sold luxury condominium conversions to Boston's elite. Damon recognized the predator beneath the polish. It was the same type he had neutralized 1,000 times in foreign territories. Except this time, the battlefield was his own home. The faint roar of the garage door snapped him from his grim research. Damon shut the laptop and poured himself 2 fingers of scotch, steadying his breathing as Vanessa entered. Her beauty even now was undeniable. At 40, she still commanded attention. Shoulder-length honey-blonde hair, vibrant green eyes, and a graceful figure maintained by Pilates and carefully curated diets. Tonight, however, she looked especially radiant. She wore a tight-fitting black dress, not the casual professional attire she usually donned for studio work. "You're home," she said, her voice carefully measured, though a flicker of surprise flashed across her face. "I thought you'd be in your office." "Finished early," Damon replied, lifting his glass. "Drink?" She shook her head. "No, I'm exhausted. The Thornton project's draining me. The client keeps changing their mind." Damon nodded, but watched closely. There was an edge to her tone, the way she avoided eye contact, how she kept distance between them as she set her purse on the counter. A faint whiff of unfamiliar cologne followed her, a scent he hadn't gifted her, and the slight smudge in her lipstick suggested a recent intimate encounter. Details, always the details. They rarely lied. Feigning casual conversation, he asked, "How's the college fund planning going?" Vanessa brightened slightly, as though relieved to shift topics. "Actually, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. Our financial advisor suggested a home equity loan. Interest rates are fantastic right now. I've got the paperwork ready. We just need to sign. Damon raised an eyebrow. I thought we agreed to use the stock portfolio when the twins reach college age. Her smile faltered briefly, a microsecond, but returned quickly. This would be better financially, less risk. Twins. The children they never had. The IVF treatments had failed years ago, and adoption had been indefinitely postponed at Vanessa's insistence. Another small piece of a larger puzzle that now seemed grotesquely misshapen. Damon took another sip of scotch. Of course, whatever you think is best. Her shoulders dropped a fraction, her guard relaxing as she excused herself to take a shower. Damon waited until he heard the water running upstairs before pulling out his secure phone. He typed quickly. Need discreet surveillance and intel. My house, my wife, starting tomorrow. Within 2 minutes, his old SEAL teammate Wesley Falcon Reynolds replied, Consider it done. Details. Damon replied with surgical brevity. Tristan Mercer, real estate developer, Highland Avenue property. As Damon sat back in his chair, he stared out at the meticulously maintained lawn Vanessa insisted on having professionally landscaped. His face hardened. This wasn't infidelity. This was a full-scale operation. Extraction. Financial cleansing. A cold, calculated betrayal. But what Vanessa didn't know was that she hadn't married a naive husband. She married a tactician. And she was about to learn exactly what that meant. 3 days passed, each one meticulously calculated and carefully executed. Damon slipped into a familiar rhythm. Outwardly unchanged, inwardly razor-sharp. Each morning, he kissed Vanessa goodbye at the front door, watching as she drove off to her supposed studio work. Each evening, he returned home precisely on time, pretending nothing had shifted in his world. But beneath the surface, a high-level intelligence operation was unfolding within his own marriage. Wesley, his former SEAL teammate, was operating with surgical precision. The surveillance reports arrived like clockwork, delivered via encrypted channels only Damon and Wesley knew existed. The updates read like field reports from a Black Ops mission, brief, factual, damning. Day 1, 10:15 a.m. Subject left residence. Entered Mercer Development offices, not interior design studio. Met with Tristan Mercer. 1:30 p.m. Subject and Mercer left office together. Lunch at Bellini's. Intimate behavior observed. Photos uploaded. Day 2, 9:10 a.m. Subject met Mercer at Pinnacle Realty office. Reviewed documents. Discussion consistent with property sale preparation. 2:45 p.m. Subject returned to studio for cover appearance. Day 3, 2:30 p.m. Subject and Mercer met at Stevenson and Brandt legal office. Law firm specializes in real estate transfers and asset separation. As Damon reviewed each new report, he felt the soldier within him grow colder, more mechanical. There was no longer any doubt. Vanessa wasn't just engaged in an affair. She was executing a complex, multi-layered extraction strategy designed to financially sever herself from him, while setting herself up with Mercer. The most alarming report came late Thursday afternoon. Wesley's voice came over the secure line, sharp and direct. They are drawing up transfer documents for the house. Full ownership to your wife. She plans to list immediately after transfer. Damon's jaw tightened, but his tone remained calm. Are they planning a quick sale? Confirmed. Realtors already involved. Estimated value, $1.2 million. Private cash buyers lined up. She wasn't just betraying him. She was liquidating the life they had built together. As Wesley continued tailing Vanessa, Damon began assembling his own legal counterstrike. He called Naomi Winters, the firm's longtime attorney, a woman whose loyalty was absolute and whose skill at legal warfare was unmatched. Naomi, Damon said without pleasantries, I need information, total discretion. You always do, Naomi replied dryly. What am I dealing with? My wife is attempting to transfer the title of our house solely into her name, under the pretense of refinancing. She's working with Stevenson and Brandt. They've scheduled document signing tomorrow. Naomi's voice lowered, instantly calculating. This reeks of fraud. Exactly. I want every action they take monitored, quietly. Naomi didn't hesitate. Give me an hour. By nightfall, she returned with the preliminary findings. Your instincts were right. They've buried the transfer deed inside a package labeled as refinancing. The lender's name is fictitious. The plan is to secure your signature without your knowledge, immediately flip the property to a shell corporation tied to Mercer, and funnel the funds offshore. The betrayal was meticulous, ruthless, professional. That evening, Damon sat alone in his home office. The house they had purchased together, furnished meticulously by Vanessa's hand, now felt like enemy territory. The polished wood floor gleamed mockingly beneath his feet. Photographs of their wedding, vacations, anniversaries, all carefully arranged by Vanessa, now appeared as artifacts of deception. He retrieved one frame from the mantel, their 10th anniversary gala. Vanessa clung to his arm, her dazzling smile aimed at the camera. Damon stared into her eyes, captured in the photograph. Had the betrayal begun already? Or had it been lurking beneath the surface all along? His phone buzzed. Wesley again. Mercer's financials are worse than we thought, Wesley reported. He's drowning in debt. 2 of his condo projects are months behind. Investors are circling like vultures. If he doesn't inject serious capital within 60 days, he's done. Damon's mind sharpened like a whetted blade. The picture was crystallizing. Vanessa wasn't merely running away for love. She and Mercer were leveraging him as their financial lifeboat. The house was not the goal. It was the ransom. And tomorrow she would try to deliver the final blow. The following evening, the trap was sprung. Vanessa returned home earlier than usual, carrying takeout from Damon's favorite steakhouse and a new bottle of the same vintage scotch she had gifted him on their anniversary years ago. A performance. Her emerald silk blouse shimmered under the chandelier lights, the one Damon had once complimented as bringing out her eyes. It was all part of the act. I thought we deserved a nice dinner together, she said sweetly. You've been working so hard. How thoughtful, Damon replied, playing along. Special occasion? She hesitated, then shook her head with feigned casualness. No, I just realized we haven't had much quality time lately. Dinner was staged like theater. They discussed his business, their future, even hypothetical vacation plans. Vanessa skillfully maneuvered the conversation toward finances. You mentioned the college fund paperwork earlier this week, Damon offered smoothly. Her eyes sparkled. Yes, I have everything ready. She reached into her purse, pulling out a neatly organized folder, complete with strategically placed yellow "Sign Here" stickers. It's just a standard refinancing form. We can take care of it right now. Damon opened the folder, scanning the documents with the careful eye of a man who had once defused bombs. Buried within refinancing jargon was the transfer deed, slyly positioned between pages 6 and 7, designed to catch him unaware. It looks good, he said calmly. But let's do this properly. Naomi should review it first. Vanessa's smile twitched. That's not necessary. The offer expires tomorrow. I'm sure Naomi can expedite it by morning. It's just good practice for any decision above $50,000. The first crack in her composure appeared. There's no need. Damon interrupted, his voice warm but unyielding. What's the lender's name again? Her eyes shifted momentarily. Boston First. Funny. I had lunch with Mitchell Bradford from Boston First last week. He didn't mention any special rates. Vanessa's face paled. Desperation flickered in her eyes. Maybe it's a new program. The advisor I spoke to didn't mention names. What was the advisor's name? David. I left his card at the studio. She stood abruptly, beginning to clear the plates with unnecessary force. You know what? You're right. We can wait until tomorrow. Damon watched every twitch of her body language, every calculated move unraveling before him. She was losing control of the narrative, but she didn't know how deeply compromised her plan already was. Later that night, as Vanessa slept, Damon sat in his office, revisiting every detail of the operation she had tried to orchestrate. His expression remained frozen in cold calculation. This wasn't personal anymore, it was war. By dawn the next morning, Damon was fully operational. The emotional phase of discovery was over. Now, it was pure tactical execution, much like countless missions overseas where hesitation meant death. At 6 a.m., he initiated the first wave of containment. His first call was to Eric Langston, the branch manager at Commonwealth Private Bank, a man whose loyalty had been bought over years of discreet favors and consulting contracts Damon had provided for bank clients. "Eric," Damon said in his calm, controlled voice, "we need to tighten all joint accounts immediately. Freeze any transactions initiated by Vanessa Ridley without my direct authorization." "Understood, Damon," Eric responded without hesitation. "Shall I include all connected accounts as well?" "All of them. Sweep for any linked shell accounts or unusual withdrawals in the last 6 months." By 8 a.m., the freeze was in place. Vanessa's ability to pull funds from their marital accounts had been amputated in one surgical stroke. But Damon didn't stop there. He called in Bryant Winters, the cyber forensics expert who handled high-risk cases for his security firm. "I need a total sweep, digital and physical," Damon instructed. "House, personal devices, network activity. Assume she's already installed spyware. I want full control restored." Bryant arrived 2 hours later, loaded with scanning gear, signal sniffers and specialized software. "Jesus, Damon," Bryant said, scanning the house with his EMF detector. "2 bugs already. One in your office, one on your personal laptop. Sloppy work, but effective if you weren't looking for it." "Disable one. Feed disinformation through the other," Damon ordered. "I want her feeling comfortable, like her plan is still intact." By noon, Damon's entire digital and physical world was scrubbed clean and fortified. Firewalls, deadman switches, tripwire alerts, and contingency backups were implemented across every access point. If Vanessa attempted any further espionage, it would trigger immediate lockdowns and legal tracking. That afternoon, Wesley delivered another package of surveillance data that only fueled Damon's controlled rage. "She met with the realtor again this morning," Wesley reported. "They're scheduling an aggressive listing date, Monday. She wants that house sold the moment the transfer clears. Mercer was with her." Damon stared at the surveillance photos. Vanessa leaning into Mercer's chest, her head thrown back in flirtatious laughter. The man wasn't just financially desperate, he was fully integrated into the con. The latest intel also revealed Mercer's properties were spiraling into default. Investors were preparing to sue. The house sale was a lifeline. "They're cornered rats," Wesley said. "They need your assets to survive." "And they think I'm still asleep," Damon replied coldly. He wasn't simply defending himself anymore. He was preparing to obliterate them. The final chess pieces clicked into place Friday evening. Vanessa returned home, once again staging her perfect wife routine. She had brought his favorite Thai takeout, wearing that same green dress that always seemed too calculated. "You've been working so hard," she purred. "I thought you deserved a treat." Damon feigned warmth, watching her every micro-expression, cataloging every false blink. "That's very thoughtful," he said as they sat down at the dinner table. Vanessa poured him a glass of wine, her smile brilliant but hollow. "And if you're up for it, I've got the paperwork ready for the refinancing." She handed over the now familiar folder, the same trick, the same concealed property transfer buried within the refinancing package. Damon played his part perfectly. He flipped through the pages, nodding as if giving it a cursory review. "Looks good," he said at last, "but I think we should let Naomi review everything on Monday, just to be safe." Vanessa's smile froze for a moment, her mask slipping just a fraction before she recovered. "I just want to lock in the rate while it's still available." "We'll still make the deadline," Damon assured her. "A few hours won't change anything." He watched her struggle to maintain composure, like a predator savoring the tremor in its prey. That night, as Vanessa slipped into a calculated sleep beside him, Damon began assembling the next phase of his assault. He forwarded Wesley and Naomi a full digital package, all the surveillance photos, financial statements, audio transcripts from Wesley's microphones, everything meticulously documented. "This is war now," Damon wrote in the message header. "Prepare for extraction." By morning, Naomi would file legal preemptive strikes against any fraudulent title transfers. Simultaneously, Damon and Wesley would begin dismantling Mercer's financial infrastructure, exposing his shell companies and unstable real estate empire to regulatory agencies and creditors alike. But the coup de grace, the final kill shot, would come from the bait Damon had prepared. Because what Vanessa didn't know yet was that Damon had already signed her transfer documents earlier that evening while she was out, but his signature wasn't T-real. Bryant had produced a perfect forensic forgery, indistinguishable from his real signature, under casual scrutiny, but flagged under professional forensic examination as fraudulent. It was a classic counterintelligence play. Give your enemy exactly what they want, but poison the well. When Vanessa filed the documents Monday, she'd be submitting fraudulent paperwork that would later implicate her directly in a conspiracy, transforming Damon from a potential victim into the government's star witness. By Monday morning, Damon's counteroffensive was no longer just a plan. It was a fully automated operation. Every move had been scripted, every response anticipated. Vanessa and Mercer were walking directly into the meticulously designed trap, smiling as they approached the cliff's edge, blind to the abyss awaiting them. At 9 a.m. sharp, Vanessa arrived at the county clerk's office with the forged refinancing. Documents Damon had deliberately allowed her to believe were genuine. She was wearing a navy blue blazer, her hair pinned back with professional precision, looking every inch the poised, successful businesswoman. The clerk took the paperwork, flipped through the pages, and began entering the data into the county system. What Vanessa didn't know was that Naomi, Damon's attorney, had been working behind the scenes since Friday. The forged signature on the deed transfer had been flagged for fraud the moment it entered the system, thanks to a confidential legal motion Naomi filed that froze all marital asset transfers pending legal review. As Vanessa waited, sipping her overpriced coffee and texting Mercer that everything's smooth, county staff were already reviewing the system's automated fraud alerts. Anomalies had been detected in both the notarization and the digital filing metadata. To any casual observer, nothing seemed unusual, but in the back office, legal red flags were exploding. Meanwhile, Damon was calmly monitoring everything from his office, a command center built like a military bunker. Multiple screens displayed real-time data feeds, county clerk system alerts, GPS trackers on Vanessa's car, live surveillance from Wesley's embedded team across town. By 10:15 a.m., Vanessa left the county building, entirely unaware her scheme was disintegrating in real time. At 11 a.m., Mercer met Vanessa at a boutique coffee shop downtown. Wesley's team had already captured several clean audio recordings through directional microphones. "It's done," Vanessa whispered. "Filed and accepted. By Friday, the house is mine." Mercer exhaled deeply, his relief almost palpable. "That's a damn good job, babe. Once the house closes, we're clear. My lenders will back off, and we'll have a fresh start." Vanessa smiled, sipping her latte. "Damon has no clue he's still playing perfect husband. I swear, sometimes I think the man is blind." Mercer grinned. "Or weak." They toasted their drinks, the image of two criminals congratulating each other on a victory that was already lost. But Damon wasn't finished. His objective was not merely to neutralize the fraud, but to utterly destroy their ability to recover. That afternoon, Naomi filed a formal complaint with the Massachusetts State Bar against Vanessa's real estate attorney, the one who had drafted the fraudulent documents. The attorney had been reckless, relying on Vanessa's assurances instead of conducting due diligence. Once the fraud investigation escalated, he would turn on Vanessa in self-preservation, offering testimony to shield himself from criminal charges. Simultaneously, Damon instructed Wesley to quietly forward Mercer's full financial records, all meticulously compiled from weeks of surveillance, to Mercer's largest private lenders. By Tuesday morning, Mercer's lenders were in full panic. They discovered not only the unpaid debts, but also multiple unauthorized fund transfers and unreported partnerships Vanessa had helped Mercer conceal. The banks immediately began calling in overdue notes and freezing Mercer Development's remaining credit lines. By Wednesday, cracks began to show. Vanessa came home that evening tense and irritable. Damon greeted her at the door with his usual calm facade. "Busy day?" he asked, feigning pleasant small talk. "Extremely," she snapped. "The realtor says we may get more than we expected for the house once the title clears." "That's excellent news," Damon replied, pouring her a glass of wine. "I'm glad things are working out." Her smile was brittle, strained. She was trying to hold it together, unaware the floor was already giving way beneath her. Thursday morning delivered the first direct strike. Vanessa received a call from her attorney. "There's a problem with the filing," the lawyer said. "The county flagged irregularities. The clerk's office escalated it for legal review. I've been contacted by the district attorney's fraud division." Vanessa froze. "Fraud division? That's insane. The documents were clean." "They're not accusing you yet," the lawyer continued cautiously, "but they've suspended the transfer until a full investigation is completed." Her voice trembled for the first time. "But the sale, the timeline—" "The title cannot transfer while under investigation," her attorney said gravely. "If there's any impropriety, they'll void the entire transaction." Vanessa hung up, her hands shaking. She immediately called Mercer. Mercer was already spiraling. His private equity backers had pulled out overnight, citing material breaches of disclosure. Creditors were calling non-stop, demanding full repayment. "They're pulling my funding," Mercer hissed into the phone. "We're days away from total collapse, Vanessa. What the hell is happening with the house?" Vanessa stammered. "The filing's under review. I don't understand. It was supposed to go through clean." "It better," Mercer snapped, "because if this falls apart, we're both done. And I swear to God, Vanessa, I won't take the fall alone." Damon watched it all unfold from his private office, every phone call, every text message, every panicked move captured through Wesley's surveillance network. His operation had now advanced into Phase 3, weaponizing the fracture. While Mercer was unraveling financially, Damon AS team was also delivering Mercer AS hidden accounts and shell company network to state financial regulators and the IRS anonymously. By the end of the week, Mercer would be buried under criminal tax audits. At the same time, Vanessa S., original attorney, now facing potential disbarment, quietly offered Naomi a deal: full cooperation in exchange for immunity. He had proof Vanessa knowingly orchestrated the forgery, coached him on the transfer, and intentionally hid material facts. Damon barely slept that night, not from exhaustion, but from cold, coiled readiness. He wasn't done yet. The decisive phase was approaching. The moment Vanessa would finally realize how badly she had underestimated the man she once believed she controlled. By Thursday afternoon, Damon knew it was time to shift from containment to destruction. Vanessa had played her final cards: the forged transfer, the rapid sale strategy, and her hidden partnership with Mercer. Now Damon would expose all of it simultaneously, forcing them into a corner with no exits. The first strike came in the form of federal attention. That morning, Naomi filed multiple complaints with the state attorney general's office, attaching the evidence package Wesley's team had collected: forged legal documents, bank withdrawals, concealed financial transactions, and Mercer's offshore shell companies. She didn't stop there. She forwarded additional files to the IRS and the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, triggering immediate audit inquiries into Mercer Development and Vanessa's personal finances. It was surgical. No press, no noise, just cold, methodical legal escalation. At noon, Damon met with his banker, a trusted family contact. In less than 30 minutes, they completed a full forensic audit of all joint accounts, formally locking out Vanessa's access and cataloging every irregular withdrawal. When Damon presented the compiled evidence to Naomi that afternoon, her eyes widened as she flipped through the documents. "My God," she whispered, "you've built a prosecutorial-grade case." "That was the goal," Damon replied calmly. "Now we unleash it." Meanwhile, Mercer was beginning to drown. The calls from his private investors had turned hostile. 2 equity partners demanded full repayment of their outstanding loans by Friday. Several contractors, tipped off by anonymous sources, Damon's people naturally, had filed lawsuits for unpaid work on Mercer ES luxury condo projects. His empire was imploding by the hour. At 5 p.m., Mercer's attorney informed him of the incoming IRS audit. This is catastrophic," Mercer stammered. His attorney nodded grimly. "Unless you can come up with several $1 million in back taxes and penalties, you're looking at fraud charges and potential criminal prosecution." Mercer, who had always operated on confidence and charisma, suddenly looked like a man stripped of his armor. His face grew pale as the weight of what was happening finally settled onto his shoulders. At home, Vanessa's panic boiled beneath the surface. She tried to maintain the facade in front of Damon that evening, cooking dinner and forcing casual conversation. "You've been working so hard lately," she offered with a tense smile. "We should plan a trip. Maybe Napa?" Damon, sipping his scotch, simply smiled back. "Napa sounds lovely. Of course, let's see how everything settles by the end of the week." Vanessa's hand trembled slightly as she raised her wineglass. She was stalling, delaying, praying that somehow the house sale would finalize before the dominoes crushed her. But Damon had already cut the strings to her escape plan. The next morning, Damon activated Phase 2. Using confidential contacts within the real estate community, he had the pending home sale flagged for full title review by a federal financial crimes task force. The forged deed transfer automatically triggered an immediate freeze on any sale activity. At 10 a.m., Vanessa received the call. "Mrs. Ridley, we are notifying you that the sale of your property has been suspended due to an ongoing investigation into possible financial misconduct. The federal authorities have placed a lien on the title." Her blood ran cold. What investigation?" she asked, her voice cracking. "I suggest you contact your attorney immediately," the agent said politely before disconnecting. Her hands trembled so violently she could barely hold her phone. She immediately called Mercer. Mercer answered in a near panic. "They froze my company accounts this morning. They're threatening to indict me for wire fraud and tax evasion. Vanessa, we are completely screwed." We just need to stay calm," Vanessa stammered, though her own breathing was erratic. "It's over," Mercer hissed. "Your husband's behind this. He's orchestrated every step." "Then maybe it's time to fight back," she whispered. Mercer paused. "What do you mean?" "We flip this. We accuse Damon of financial abuse, of intimidation. We claim he used illegal surveillance tactics, manipulated our finances, created a hostile marriage. We shift the narrative." Mercer's silence on the other end of the line was heavy. Then finally, "If we do this, Vanessa, there's no going back." "There's nothing left to lose," she whispered. They underestimated Damon, again, because by the time Vanessa and Mercer began drafting their desperate legal counterattack, Damon was already 3 steps ahead. That afternoon, Naomi filed a counter-motion in family court, presenting overwhelming evidence of attempted fraud, financial manipulation, and conspiracy between Vanessa and Mercer. Included in the filing were surveillance photos of Vanessa and Mercer meeting with realtors under aliases, wire transfer receipts showing Mercer receiving cash infusions from Vanessa, the original forged deed transfer documents flagged for criminal review, wiretaps capturing Vanessa's own words, "Damon trusts me completely. He'll sign anything I put in front of him." The judge reviewed the emergency filing and issued a full asset freeze on both Vanessa and Mercer, pending criminal investigation. Within 24 hours, all of Vanessa's accounts were locked. The noose was tightening rapidly. By Friday morning, federal agents from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division arrived at Vanessa's design studio with search warrants in hand. Employees were ushered out. Computers were seized. Vanessa was formally served a subpoena to appear before a grand jury. Mercer's luxury offices faced a similar fate that same afternoon. By the time Damon poured himself a drink that evening, the war was nearly over. Phase 3 had worked perfectly. Mercer's company was in free fall. His assets were frozen. His name plastered across financial headlines as under federal investigation. Vanessa, stripped of her business, her finances, and her public image, now faced federal fraud and conspiracy charges alongside Mercer. Damon sat in his quiet study, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. He had executed the perfect operation, and yet victory felt hollow. The house was still his business intact, his legal standing stronger than ever. But he was alone. His marriage, which once began with love, had collapsed into a ruthless, calculated battlefield where there were no survivors, only casualties, and yet it had been necessary, because Damon Ridley never lost control of the battlefield. By Monday morning, the war had moved entirely into the courtroom. The gloves were off. This was no longer a domestic dispute. It was a federal legal hurricane. The courthouse was packed. Federal agents had already frozen all joint assets, and both Vanessa and Mercer faced grand jury subpoenas. The case had escalated from simple divorce proceedings into full-blown investigations into fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. Damon walked into the courthouse with calculated calm. His tailored navy suit was crisp, his shoulders squared. Naomi walked beside him, her legal briefcase overflowing with meticulously organized evidence. Wesley trailed quietly behind, scanning the room with his operator's instincts, making sure Damon's physical security was still uncompromised. Meanwhile, Vanessa sat at the opposite end of the courtroom, disheveled. Her once flawless hair now seemed forced, her makeup barely concealing the exhaustion under her eyes. Mercer sat next to her, tense and jumpy. His former smug confidence had evaporated, replaced by the gaunt look of a man trapped in quicksand. The judge entered, slamming the gavel once. Court is in session. The legal storm was officially underway. Naomi stood up with composure. Your Honor, we intend to present irrefutable evidence that Mrs. Ridley and Mr. Mercer conspired to defraud Mr. Damon Ridley of his marital assets, specifically through illegal property transfer and financial manipulation schemes. We also intend to prove that these actions were coordinated to funnel liquid assets toward Mr. Mercer's failing real estate projects. The judge, a sharp and respected federal judge named Eleanor Whitaker, adjusted her glasses. You may proceed, Counselor. The first exhibit was introduced, the forged property transfer deed. Exhibit A is the document submitted to the county registrar's office. It lists the property transfer under the guise of a routine refinancing, yet in reality, buried within the paperwork is an unauthorized full transfer of ownership from both parties to Mrs. Vanessa Ridley solely. Projected on a large monitor was Vanessa's forged signature request page, with the strategically placed sticky tabs obscuring the fine print. This maneuver was an attempt to illegally remove Mr. Ridley's legal claim to the property, Naomi continued. Had the county processing not been flagged, the property would have been sold immediately. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Vanessa fidgeted, gripping her attorney's arm. Mercer simply stared forward, avoiding eye contact. Next came the bank records. Exhibit B, Naomi said smoothly, shows a pattern of significant withdrawals from joint accounts over the course of several months. Each withdrawal was deliberately kept just under the notification threshold to avoid automatic alerts to Mr. Ridley. The screen flashed through page after page of bank statements, highlighting withdrawals totaling over $218,500, all orchestrated by Vanessa. Where did this money go? Naomi continued, pacing slightly to build tension. Exhibit C shows direct wire transfers from shell companies controlled by Mrs. Ridley and her business accounts into Mercer Development Group's operating accounts. The courtroom collectively inhaled. Mercer's attorney rose, but was quickly silenced by Judge Whitaker. Counsel will restrain themselves. You may continue, Ms. Winters. Now came the dagger. Naomi reached for the small recorder placed delicately on the evidence table. We also present Exhibit D audio recordings obtained via legally installed home security systems, which capture Mrs. Ridley herself describing the plan in her own words. She pressed play. Vanessa's voice filled the silent courtroom. Damon trusts me completely. He is so checked out of the marriage he'll sign anything I put in front of him. Once I have the house, Mercer and I can finally move forward. The raw evidence hit like a hammer. The judge's face darkened. The gallery gasped audibly. Vanessa shrank further into her seat. Finally, Your Honor, Naomi said, we submit Exhibit E, documentation provided by the IRS, the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, and private plaintiffs involved in ongoing civil suits against Mr. Mercer. These filings confirm that Mercer Development Group was insolvent at the time of the fraudulent property transfer attempt. The files revealed unpaid taxes, contractor lawsuits, defaulted loans, and evidence of shell corporations Mercer used to hide his failing empire. Mercer's attorney attempted a feeble counterattack, suggesting that Damon's security firm had engaged in illegal surveillance and intimidation. But Naomi shut it down instantly. Your Honor, all surveillance was conducted on Mr. Ridley's legally owned property and digital assets. Furthermore, We have witness affidavits and security professionals who can verify the legality of every piece of evidence collected. Judge Whittaker nodded sharply. Unless you have direct evidence of illegal conduct by Mr. Ridley, the defense's accusation is dismissed. Mercer's attorney sat down, defeated. At this point, Vanessa's new criminal defense attorney requested a recess. It was clear the weight of evidence was overwhelming. The strategy had shifted from denial to damage control. During the break, Naomi approached Damon in the hallway. "We have them cornered. I expect Mrs. Ridley's side to approach us for a plea bargain after lunch." "Let them come," Damon replied coldly, "but we don't concede." As predicted, Vanessa's attorney requested an off-record conference. "My client is willing to accept the original divorce settlement. No contest," the attorney began, voice cracking under pressure. "In addition, she's prepared to fully cooperate with federal investigators in exchange for leniency." Naomi remained icy. "My client demands full restitution of the stolen funds, no spousal support, and a complete confession to the fraud in writing. Otherwise, we proceed to full criminal prosecution." The attorney hesitated, glanced at Vanessa, who was now trembling, her face pale as paper. "We accept." Judge Whittaker reconvened. "After hearing today's evidence and given the defendant's confession and cooperation with ongoing federal investigations, I hereby grant Mr. Ridley's full divorce settlement request. All joint assets, including the contested property, remain in his sole possession. There will be no alimony awarded." The gavel slammed. It was done. That night, Damon returned to his home. The same house Vanessa had tried to steal from him, the same house now legally and irrevocably his. He poured himself a scotch and stared out into the dark suburban street. The legal storm had ended. The battlefield was silent, and though victory was complete, the hollow emptiness remained. The federal building was cold, clinical. Its fluorescent lights hummed as Vanessa Ridley sat across from two stern-faced FBI agents. Her once radiant appearance had wilted under the pressure of weeks of investigation, legal maneuvering, and emotional collapse. Her attorney sat beside her, trying to hold a professional composure that was visibly cracking. "Mrs. Ridley," Agent Ramirez began, "as we proceed with your cooperation agreement, understand that full disclosure is mandatory. Any omission could void the deal and reinstate all pending charges." Vanessa swallowed. Her voice trembled. I understand." She began revealing everything. The affair with Mercer, the stolen funds, the fake refinancing documents, the attempt to sell the house, the conspiracy to cover up Mercer's financial implosion. But when the conversation shifted toward Howard Kleinman's death, the room grew heavier. "Mrs. Ridley, you benefited directly from Mr. Kleinman's life insurance policy. You were intimately involved in planning his boating trip. We need the full truth." Tears filled Vanessa's eyes. "It was supposed to be an accident," she whispered. "I never wanted him dead. It was his idea, Howard's. He wanted to stage a disappearance for financial gain, offshore assets, insurance scams. But something went wrong." The agents exchanged glances. "Are you saying Mr. Kleinman staged his own accident?" Agent Ramirez pushed. "That was the plan," she sobbed. "But I swear I didn't kill him. The weather changed. The storm capsized the boat before his escape could be executed. He died for real." Vanessa's confession dramatically shifted the investigation. What was initially suspected as murder now morphed into a failed insurance scam with tragic consequences. But federal law didn't care about her intentions. The fraud, the cover-up, the shell corporations, the stolen money, all of it remained criminal. Within days, Vanessa was indicted for federal wire fraud, conspiracy to commit financial fraud, and obstruction of justice. Her father, Porter Leland, faced separate charges related to attempted bribery and money laundering. Mercer, now hiding in Chile, was being pursued for extradition. The entire empire of deceit collapsed like a house of cards. The newspapers exploded with headlines: "Boston interior designer at center of financial scandal, Kleinman insurance fraud exposed, ex-SEAL husband uncovers wife's complex web of deceit." A few days later, Damon sat in a separate federal office for his final interview. Agent Ramirez looked at him with professional curiosity. "Mr. Ridley, You played your hand masterfully. Damon's expression remained neutral. I simply protected myself. You could have come to us sooner. The Kleinman connection nearly spiraled into something far uglier. Damon nodded. I wanted certainty before I triggered a legal firestorm. Acting prematurely might have given them time to destroy evidence. Ramirez scribbled something in her notes. Your ex-wife faces serious prison time. She made her choices. Ramirez paused. You never once tried to negotiate with her privately after the initial collapse? No, negotiating with people who hold knives behind their backs is foolish. There was respect in Ramirez's eyes, mixed with a touch of concern. You know this kind of victory can leave deep scars, Mr. Ridley. I carry my scars where they belong, Damon replied coldly, in silence. Months later, Damon stood quietly at the back of the courtroom as Vanessa faced sentencing. The judge read aloud the list of charges: wire fraud, bank fraud, conspiracy, obstruction. Vanessa stood still, hands trembling, as the judge delivered her fate. Mrs. Ridley, this court sentences you to 64 months in federal prison, followed by supervised probation. Vanessa gasped softly as the gavel slammed. Her eyes scanned the room, searching for Damon. Their eyes met, not as husband and wife, but as two adversaries whose battle was over. Her eyes pleaded for some trace of compassion. Damon's stare remained steel. After the sentencing outside the courtroom, Vanessa requested one last meeting. Naomi advised against it, but Damon agreed. They sat across from each other in a small, empty conference room. I never meant for it to end like this, Vanessa whispered, her voice hollow. Are you meant for me to sign away my home and disappear quietly while you sold my life to cover merciless debts? I was scared, she pleaded. I was desperate. I thought we'd grown apart. Damon's voice was calm, razor-sharp. You don't destroy someone you've grown apart from. You leave. You end it clean. What you did was war. Tears streamed down her face. I lost everything. No, Damon corrected, leaning in slightly. You lost what you stole. You never lost what was yours, and because you never truly built anything that was. She sobbed uncontrollably. Damon stood up. This is the last time we'll ever speak. He walked away, his silhouette fading from her view, a man who had faced betrayal, dismantled a conspiracy, and emerged intact. As weeks passed, Damon returned to his work, his company stronger than ever. Clients admired his resilience. His reputation for integrity was ironclad. He no longer lived in the shadows of revenge or heartbreak. Instead, Damon Ridley became what few men in his position could achieve, not just victorious, but untouchable. And though the scars remained hidden beneath the surface, one truth stayed clear in his mind. Victory is never clean, but survival is always worth the price.